How are
I'm
you?
good. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. So, yeah, I've just woken up about an hour ago and just had my breakfast, and now I'm just starting my lesson. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Okay.
with you. Yeah. And how about you? Yeah. Mm.
I'm fine. I'm totally fine. So I'm in Uruguay for the
Mm.
first time
Right.
right now. Yeah, in Uruguay. 5 days ago, I went to the I was yeah I went to Argentina.
Mm.
Uh, and now, yeah, in Uruguay, but my vacations are gone. And I'm going to fly tomorrow to Colombia, to Medellin. I have to fly to Medellin.
Yeah.
And that's it, 15 days on vacations.
Vacation. And your full-time job is italki, isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you gave yourself 2 weeks. You gave yourself 2 weeks. Wow. I think I've only given myself max 10, was it 1 week or 8 days or something? And that was back in March of this year. My family went on a road trip and I went with them. I believe it was 7 days or 8 days, or I can't, maybe it might have even been 10 days. Yeah, it was the longest holiday I've ever given myself. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Okay. My days I was working in the afternoon, and I was visiting different places in the morning.
Okay. Okay. So, wait, did you still do some teaching, or you took a complete break from teaching? Mm.
No, I still teaching.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't okay. So you were traveling while teaching. Right. 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 So that
I
wasn't.
was traveling. Okay, I was teaching part-time, and I was visiting different places in the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Uh, Morning, especially in the morning. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I remember last time you wanted to practice asking me questions and stuff. Do you want to do the same thing again in this lesson?
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
I already prepared a topic for you just
Okay.
because you told me that you were learning languages, especially Chinese or Japanese.
Japanese.
Okay,
Mm,
Japanese. So today I prepared a topic about the languages. So I have different questions for you,
mm.
and that in this occasion we are going to practice the present tense, because in the last class we were talking about it was present tense as well, the
Well, I mean,
cultures.
you also asked me about, yeah. You asked me about my culture, the UK, and maybe a little bit about my childhood. Yeah. So,
Yeah, fast. Yeah. Okay, okay, perfect. So the first question for you is about, okay, so for you, what is the most interesting part about learning a new language?
understanding more. So, like for me, just the feeling of being able to understand more, um, and for me, speaking in all of my languages that I've studied, speaking was never the priority. Although that is something that I'd like to get to at some point in the journey, but it was always understanding. So with Arabic, for example, it
Mhm.
was understanding the Quran more. With what other languages I've seriously studied? Well, Japanese, it's to understand anime more. With when I was studying my wife's language, Japacano, right? It was again to understand them more, maybe to speak with them a little bit as well, but really to understand them more. So for me, the biggest thing and the most interesting thing is just to understand what I'm reading and what I'm hearing. I find
Mhm.
that very fascinating, very rewarding. Yeah, yeah. Mm.
Okay, and it's interesting because all people always say that the most interesting part is being able to speak.
Well, I'm not, despite the fact that I teach on italki, right? I don't find that, and although interacting with people is important to me, and if I didn't have italki, I would probably be online and talking to some people. But in general, I spent most of my time in my own bubble, and which means I'm watching things, I'm reading things. So it's not an activity. I mean, talking to people is not an activity that I always look for. I'm really looking for things for entertainment, for education, which means I'm really mainly listening and reading most of my life, you know. Yeah. Mm,
Mhm. Okay,
mm.
so it means that you in reality try to catch the knowledge or
Right, right,
the essence
exactly.
of the action of learning a new language. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, the knowledge is a good way of putting it. There's a guy on YouTube called Virtually Native. His name is Vladimir, but he makes the argument that language is about knowledge. It's about learning, acquiring knowledge. It's not about communication. That's I don't share that opinion. I think it's both, right? Knowledge and communicate, and even communication is about sharing knowledge. So he's right to some extent that it's all about knowledge. But yeah, I take 80% of his view basically that yeah, language is about knowledge. So yeah, yeah. So the more I can learn, the more I understand, and yeah. Mm.
Okay, interesting. And do you remember the first sensation when you were able to communicate with people, for example, in Arabic or something?
Yeah. So Arabic. I mean.
Mhm,
Arabic was the one that I was seriously studying, when I was like 25 or 26.
mhm,
But basically, some years ago, 7 years ago. And yeah, when I actually started like using it, like communicating with it to some people in the UK, and then I went to Morocco and I was using it, yeah, just to chat with, to order food or even to chat. I made a friend, a Moroccan friend, and, chatting with him um, yeah, it's kind of funny what we chatted about, but yeah. So I chat with him about his life, about my life, and yeah, and yeah, yeah. So it was cool. Yeah. Although my Arabic wasn't great, but still we could have some kind of conversation, which is nice. Yeah. Mm, mm,
okay, interesting. It's fascinating. Do you know
mm.
this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 Mm, mm.
Okay, so another question. Um, do you think people in England are interested in learning other type of languages? Because sometimes, for example, people in USA, the majority of people say that they don't really interested in learn other
They're
languages.
not really interested, right? Yeah. Um, Now just correcting the grammar there, that they're not interested normally. Yeah, or if they are, it would be Spanish, right? But in the UK, the people are interested in other languages. Despite Brexit and all that, British people are still Europeans. They still consider themselves Europeans, and they're still connected with Europe. Some of them like to learn French, some of them like to learn Spanish, some of them like to learn German, or Italian. So British people are still enamored by and they're enchanted by European languages like Italian, French, Spanish, German. So my best friend in the UK, he learned French, right? And then, I was in the German class in school, lots of people taking French and German and like that. And yeah, it's not abnormal for people to learn something, but most British people are still monolingual. The majority are still monolingual, but they are interested in other things. Yeah, they are. Mm.
But it's just because it's a requirement in the school or something, or is because they authentically want to learn other language?
I mean, the ones who authentically want to learn another language will. The majority, they just do something because it's in their school, right? Um, they might take the German or the French class because they have to pick it in school. And then after school, they won't do anything with it, right? But there are enough people that are interested in other languages that I know that it's not like the USA where people are just monolingual and they're proud to be monolingual and they don't care. They probably don't think that anyone speaks any other languages. But in Britain, no, yeah, they they are interested in learning even things like Japanese, Arabic, these Chinese. These
Mhm.
are, British people. There are British people who are interested in these languages, not just European, but even exotic ones as well. Yeah, exotic for us anyway. Yeah. Mm, yeah. Mm,
Okay,
mm.
interesting. Very good. Okay. So another question for you. Let me see. Okay, so for you, what was the most difficult part about learning Arabic, for example? Or yeah,
Uh,
Arabic. Mhm.
I think with any languages, each language has its challenges for sure, right?
Mhm.
The general problem has always been uh, being consistent and finding a resource to learn from. And I don't mean learners' resources. I mean, for example, movies or anime or cartoons or media that have the Arabic subtitles that I can, extract from, and learn from. And then, but grammar grammar is challenging in Arabic, yeah, because it's although it's systematic, there's a lot of moving pieces, right? And there's a lot of parts, and but it is systematic, so that makes it easier. But yeah,
Mhm.
so and I would say the same thing for Japanese. Grammar is the hardest part of it. Obviously, the writing system is whatever. I never found the writing system of Arabic a struggle because I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I could already read and like I was literate already from a young age, so that was never a problem.
Mhm.
But it was just about acquiring vocabulary and understanding the grammar. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
that was. I'm being consistent in doing that. Yeah,
And
yeah.
what about pronunciation for you?
I don't have a problem with pronunciation. I can do all the, ha, ah, ha, I can do all the, Arabic sounds. So it's fine. Like ga, 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 ha, ha, ah. Yeah, I can do all of it. So it's fine. It's not a problem. Yeah, that was never a problem. Yeah. And when I speak, I have according to some students of mine who are Arabics, I sometimes sound Lebanese, which is interesting, or I have a bit of a British accent in my Arabic. Yeah, but I sound some kind of mixture between British and Lebanese or Egyptian when I speak Arabic. So my accent is kind of okay, but I've never really practiced speaking, so but it's yeah.
Okay. At that point, are you good in all of the skills of the language? For example, writing, reading, listening, or just
So basically, in terms of reading, my ability to read words fast, that's very good. I can read words almost as fast as I can read English. In terms of understanding what I read, that's a different story. I would need more vocabulary. But if we talk about, for example, the Quran,
mm-hmm,
which was my goal in the first place.
mm-hmm,
If I pick the Quran up, I can understand 60 or 70% of what I'm reading, which is the point. I wanted to understand the Quran. I wasn't interested in other things. And the nice thing about the Quran is that there's repetitive language and there's a small number of words that are used, relatively speaking. And so once you've learned a few hundred, it kind of opens up the whole book to you, at least from a textual level, right? From a vocabulary level. Yeah, I could understand 60, 70, and depending on the chapter, I can understand more. So that's cool. In terms of writing, I have some Syrian friend. I have a Syrian friend on WhatsApp, and sometimes we just communicate briefly. And I can text him in Arabic without having to translate. I can construct sentences. but not in a very deep way. But I can do it, yeah, and he can understand me, so that's nice. In terms of speaking, I mix my Egyptian dialect with the standard Arabic, and so I think that's normal practice actually, but that's what I do anyway. And my listening's not too bad, like, but it's not. I mean, I'm still a low intermediate, so uh my comprehension level is really at a low intermediate. So, and so my skills are about that level as well. Yeah. Mm.
Okay, interesting, really interesting. Good. Okay, so another question for you. Okay, um, from your point of view, or yeah, from your point of view, what type or which type of skills a person have to have to learn a new language?
Yeah. The
Or,
foundation, the bedrock of
or let
yeah.
me share the question, because maybe it's wrong the way that I asking the question.
Yeah.
What type of skill are required to learn a new language?
Right. You don't mean language skill, but you mean personalities and
Yeah.
what kind of qualities. So what kind of qualities do you need to have to learn a skill, right? To learn languages, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, Honestly, the only one is perseverance, right?
Mhm.
That is the, as long as you are determined and perseverant is the noun for persevering. If you're perseverant and you're determined, yeah, you will acquire and learn the language, right? Um, you know, that's the, that's in terms of the how, but uh I also think that you have to be a sort of person that it doesn't feel like your culture and your language is the only thing that exists in the world, the most important part of the world. There has to be a sense that you are small compared to the world, and then there's so much to explore. So people who have that sort of idea that they are small and there's a whole world to explore, those kinds of people also do very well. At the very least, they have a tremendous love for other cultures and other languages. So, and at least a great curiosity. So you need to be very curious, right? And you need to be persevering, right? So to be curious, you have to feel like there's more to the world than your own little small world, and then you have to persevere, and that's it really. The rest of it are just details, but those are the two I would say are the main things: curiosity and perseverance. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Mm.
Excellent. And open-minded, you know?
It is connected with curiosity. You can't
Mhm.
be closed-minded and curious. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
You have to be open-minded to be curious, and to be curious, you have to be open-minded. So that's what I was talking about. The open-mindedness leads to curiosity. Yeah, yeah.
You're
Mm.
right. You're totally right. Okay, so another question for you. What benefits have in that mm, stage of your life, um, or what type of benefits brings to you the possibility to learn different languages in your life?
Well, you know, it's a tricky one because I'm a native English speaker, and that means that I almost don't need to learn another language, even when it comes to something deep like the Quran or even anime. There are lots of resources in English about the Quran. There's a whole translation, interpretation of the Quran. There are people who explain the Quran, the history, the meaning, the connections, the deep spiritual meanings in English. I don't need Arabic to learn all of that. I can just stay in English and learn all of that. With regards to anime, for example, I can it's difficult to find anime without English. You have to really search for it. And then in the Philippines, I can just use English. There's no necessity for me to learn Chapacano. So what's left for me uh, is the the emotional the emotional dimension of these things, right? Like emotionally connecting with the book, with the Japanese media, with the Filipino people. And I think that's the key, you know, it's being able to feel like you are more connected to these things. And I feel that that's been the biggest benefit, right? Yeah, you can hear me well, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
good. So yeah, that's been the biggest benefit. Like I feel like I understand the Quran more now. I feel like I can appreciate Japanese anime more, and I can understand more things about what my wife says to her family and everyday things. So I have a stronger emotional connection to these things and to them and so on. So I feel that that's been the biggest benefit. And also, as an aside, because I'm learning bits of different languages, you see connections. They might be there, they might not be there, right? But it gives you an idea of the history of the people of the world, and so I get a sense of us, of humanity, and so on. And yeah, so that's also increased my understanding of our history, of our world, and giving me an appreciation of how connected we are. Despite the fact that you're from Colombia, you might have more in common with Filipinos than you think, for example. You might have more in common with Japanese than you think, and or the Middle East, right? And yeah, and I think just knowing them, knowing how connected people are, is very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I think that the unique way to understand a culture is through the language, because
Mm.
the language is the culture.
No, absolutely. It's intertwined, there's no like you can't separate it. Yeah. Mm.
A part of music or history or whatever. Language is everything, you know.
Right, right, absolutely. Absolutely. Mm.
Okay, so another question. Do you think that it's possible to learn a new language without grammar, without studying grammar?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely you can. Because what came first, language or grammar? Language came first, not grammar. Grammar
Mhm.
came after, and grammar in more languages, even if we talk about Arabic, people didn't study grammar to learn Arabic. They just knew Arabic and like that. But then later, grammarians, people who were experts, they codified or codified the grammar rules. And what grammar really is pattern recognition, right? So we already have a pattern recognition machine in our brain. So as
Mhm.
long as we are exposed enough and we learn and we, for example, memorize words and sentences, and we spend a lot of time with media and speaking with people and noticing as well, we can start to pick up uh, patterns. And patterns is grammar, right? Now, that's a slow way of doing it, right? It will take a while, right? And if you're a child, you have all the time in the world. If you're an adult, you might only have 1 or 2 hours in the day. And so grammar can accelerate your noticing. Yeah. So my opinion, the place grammar has is not to make you speak correctly, but rather to help you notice patterns. So you've always noticed in Spanish that the the ing form is has ado, right? So the ab, if I'm right, am I right? I'm right. I'm right. But yeah,
Yeah.
is that, so if you want to say like the doing, the ing form, you would use the a you yeah, right.
Ando o
Uh,
endo.
Right.
Ando.
Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
Right. So and yeah, yeah. So you have that. So there's a pattern there. If you read, even if you read, if you listen a little bit or you read, you will start to notice those kind of endings very quickly, right? And you
Mhm.
start to notice, oh, and if you see some translations, you will realize that, oh, that's the ing form, that's the continuous form. Okay, that at least that's a basic understanding. And
Mhm.
that's enough. Usually, that's
Mhm.
enough to get by without grammar. But grammar can accelerate your
Mhm.
noticing and therefore your acquisition of the language. That's my personal understanding. But yeah,
Yeah, but it's interesting. You are so prepared, a teacher. You know a lot. It's just
well,
because you read a lot.
well, I like as well as learning languages. I love to learn about learning languages. So I like to spend a lot of time listening to polyglots and listening to different people's experiences and on YouTube, or I read books as well. I even read, this is fascinating. Someone made a case study of himself learning French from scratch, an Australian, right? So he documented his journey, like literally, right? And just learning French from media, right? From watching cartoons or movies or series and listening to music just from TV and radio. And he documented his process. And then he went to France and did more immersion and reading and speaking with people. And he reached the B2 level doing that, you know. But initially, he reached maybe a sort of B1 level after something like 12 months or so of
Mhm.
just doing that, you know, just no looking at translations, nothing, just watching media without English subtitles and acquiring an understanding. It We can acquire a language just from understanding bits and pieces and understanding more bits and pieces. But you know, we have now ChatGPT, we have the internet, we have other things, we have other tools, so we don't have to be so like we don't have to tie our hands anymore, right? But you know, it's interesting. So I like to learn how we actually learn, and so I can give my students better advice, and I can better learn languages.
Yeah, 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 I can see it. So
Mhm.
I love to investigate about different ways to introduce a language in your mind. For me, so fascinating as well, you
Yeah.
know?
Do you deal with a lot of beginner students or intermediates, or you deal
I
with a lot of,
levels, yeah,
have
yeah,
you ever seen someone go from an A1 to a B1, you know, whatever that means to you? In fact,
yeah.
actually, I would like to ask you that question. What does a beginner mean? What does intermediate mean? And what does advanced mean in a language? Yeah.
Okay, so beginner is when the person don't have enough vocabulary and is able to say words like hola or
Yeah.
hello, basic word,
Yeah.
basic words. In intermediate is when they are able to speak, but they also have a big important amount of mistakes in their way that they are speaking, you know. And advanced is when they have a lot of knowledge about deep topics or are able to manage to handle basic topics and deep topics as well. And
Yeah.
they also make, I don't know, one or two, three mistakes during a conversation, you know?
Right, right,
Mhm.
right. My way of saying this is this, right? So, the difference between a C1 and a B2 is that the B2, they can be fluent and they can express themselves well on many topics, but they will use their language's grammar, their language's expressions, and they will translate. So even at that stage, a lot of B2 are still translating to a large extent. C1, they're no longer translating. They are just speaking the language in the way the language should be spoken. But like you said, they will still make a mistake here or there. I have very advanced students who will still make 1 or 2 mistakes in every
Yeah.
30 or 60 minutes. So it doesn't mean you're mistake free, but you feel comfortable expressing yourself completely with them, right? With the C1. With B with B1, their understanding seems to be decent, that you feel that they could understand you when you speak at a, at a slow pace, but they find it difficult to construct sentences, but they can, right? uh, Beginner, they can barely construct a coherent sentence, and very often, or half of the time, you don't really quite know what they mean. Yeah. So that's like very low beginner. Upper beginner, they can do something a bit more than that. But yeah, so low intermediate for me, they can put some sentences together. It will have lots of mistakes, right? And they're always hesitating and gaps in their speech, right? B2, they could be fluent, but they will use their own, they will translate from their language. C1, they're not translating, they're using, like, if we're talking about English, they're using English expressions when they're speaking English, or Spanish, they use Spanish expressions when they're speaking Spanish, right? You know, uh, right. So that's my way of interpreting it anyway.
Okay, right. And give me some recommendations to improve the way that I ask questions, or I don't know, or what do you think about my way or my structure? Not the questions, about the structures that I use.
Yeah. Usually when it comes to questions, and when it comes to English, the the usually we like to put the main point in the beginning of of the thing, right? Although that's just a general thing. I would suggest that you could use ChatGPT to you type your questions to ChatGPT and then ask it, make these questions more concise and more to the point,
Yeah.
right, right. Because for example, when you were asking about language, which skill you need to learn languages, at first I thought you meant which is more important, reading, writing, listening, or speaking, right? At first I thought you meant something like that. So here, using more adjectives could help make your question more specific, right? So, what personality qualities do you need to have? Sometimes you might need to say more words just to be a bit more specific. So, as long as your questions are specific, and sometimes you may need to use more words to be more specific, then it's
Mhm.
fine. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So as long as your questions are specific, it's okay. Um, but yeah, but I could suggest that, yeah, you can use ChatGPT to see if it can rewrite your answers in a more concise and specific way, and then you
Mhm.
can learn from that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And what do you consider is my level in English?
Uh, it- it- very, very high. No, very high B, like you're between B2 and C1. You're like
Mhm.
between. Yeah, 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 like between. Yeah, 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 yeah. You're
Okay,
extremely high, but your comprehension is definitely C1.
mhm.
But your spoken English is you still make, Spanish
Mhm.
kind of, expressions. And so I put you between, because you still speak fluently. So according to my own metric, me too. But you're too good. So it's like you're so close to C1, so close to it. Yeah.
Okay, Mohammed, was amazing to see you again.
Yeah.
Okay,
Likewise, likewise. Yeah.
have a
And
really, really good time.
yeah. So
Okay,
have a good, yeah, yeah, and have a great day and a great night, and I'll see you next time, Sandra. Yeah. Mm.
okay, perfect. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Yeah.